Yo, what's up everybody? Just going to be doing a patch 5.4 review, 5.4 review. I'm not going to redo the intro because I don't give a damn. But, yeah, I don't remember if I did one of these for 5.3. If I didn't, that's my bad. But also, I'm going to be uploading some ranked games and stuff for my stream. You guys can see the link in the description and everything. Feel free to come hang out there. But anyways, getting into the patch notes. Sorry for not uploading on YouTube, all that good stuff. But, yeah, it's coming. So, first off, Blink. Assassins mainly have been abusing Blink because with Assassins doing more damage, things like Heartseeker and Crusher have made Burst Assassins very hard to deal with, and when they're also able to Blink engage on you and then save their movement ability as an escape, it becomes really hard to play around and to punish them. So just a 20-second increase cooldown on Blink. Blink is just just such an insanely strong relic, basically for every role except like maybe mid and ADC. But for any of the frontline roles, it's just such a good relic, and it's a minute shorter cooldown than you would see. You know, Beads is a 50-second longer cooldown, and then Aegis is an 80-second longer cooldown. So it's just going to lower the power level of Blink a little bit. Honestly, I'm a bit sad from a support perspective. I think this was a needed cooldown because it allowed you to basically Geb off cooldown, or like Blink Geb off, Blink Sylvanas off, Blink, you know, whatever, right? A lot of ultimates that are 90-second cooldowns or higher, kind of required this type of Blink cooldown for those to be able to be used to the best of their abilities. But now with the cooldown going up to 120, I think you'll see some supports like Geb, at least at like a casual or a ranked level, struggle a bit more to engage as much as you would like. So that's pretty much my thoughts on that. Chalice of the Oracle, this is a revert from the Season 5 change that lowered the gold of Chalice from 400 to 300 gold. I've probably been one of, if not the only person at a pro level who has consistently valued Chalice throughout Season 4. I bought it at Regionals a lot. I don't remember if I bought it at Worlds, but I had like a few situations where I thought it was really good. And I thought at 400 gold it was very balanced. It basically only took you 3 backs to get value out of it, so it would be 8 wards total, but if you were going to buy 2 normals anyways, it only was 300 gold extra. So then, you know, off of 3 backs, you end up spending that extra 300 on the 6 wards that you get. Obviously, making that cheaper to get your return made this item really, really strong, along with the new map changes. Chalice was being bought on multiple roles. Like, in some games there would be 10 Chalices, so it was just way too much. I think the price adjustment was enough to probably stop it at a casual and a ranked level from being bought a lot. As for competitive, I'm really not sure yet. I know how I value it as a support, but I don't know how carries feel about it. So for me, I think that it's still a good item. I think it's in a fine spot. I think it has a good place for the support role. Whether this will solve the problem of seeing 10 Chalices, I'm not sure, because it is a completely different map. And the way people are playing can play off of Chalice, so really hard to tell, but overall a good change for sure. It just might need another change after this. Gauntlet of Thebes now gains 5 stacks for a God Killer assist. Just something to get the stacking going a little bit more. Reward supports for going Thebes and also still maintaining aggression, trying to make plays with their teams, with their teammates rather. I think it's a really good change. I think this puts Thebes. I think it's good that it stacks similarly to other stacking items. I think that's good just for a consistency sort of deal. I think Thebes is obviously, you know, just stat-wise, once it's full stacked, it's the best support item in the game. Whether this makes it too strong, I think probably not, because the aura isn't that great. I still think Sovereignty first item is really, really good, but obviously this helps Thebes a lot. The part where I think this matters most is if you go Sovereignty first item and then go Thebes afterwards. If you already felt tanky from the Sov, you're able to go basically a greedy item like Thebes, and then while you're team fighting, you can still stack it, so you don't have to play super passive. And now, third item Thebes is way, way, way better than it was in the past. So this is actually a pretty big change in my opinion for that. Emerald Talisman and Stoneguy, I'm going to see if I can show these together. So basically, Stoneguy is having a price increase. It'll be 200 up front on the T2. And then on the tier 3, so total, the item is 150 gold more expensive. So just 200 of that is moved up front, and then 50, you know, 50 gold cheaper to the T2 or whatever. Anyways, Decrease the passive from 0.4 to 0.3% HP per second. So they just reworded this. Instead of having it HP 5 or whatever, percent HP 5, it's just going to be percent HP per second. So this goes from 2% in 5 seconds to 1.5% in 5 seconds. So just a slight decrease. Just to make the sustain of this item work more off of the proc and less off of the passive of just giving you that sustain no matter what. Going on to Heartseeker, again, I had mentioned earlier, Assassins abusing Heartseeker, Crusher, and Blink together. You'll see nerfs to 2 of those items. Crusher is going to stay the same. Still an insane item, really good for Assassins, but decrease the passive bonus damage trigger from 100 to 80%. Personally, I felt like I would have nerfed Crusher over nerfing Heartseeker. I think there's a very strong argument to be made to nerf both of them, because both of them together is what the main problem is, not either one alone. And I think you have to nerf both of them to stop that combo from being good on literally every single assassin. But I think their logic that they used for this change was that Heartseeker is burst damage, so it's a little more unfun to play against than Crusher, where you can Aegis the dot damage pretty reliably and pretty easily. And I think that is a fair point, but in terms of total damage, I feel like Crusher was doing more damage because it could proc on multiple abilities. You didn't have to get auto attacks to stack it or anything like that. And I feel the stats are more bloated on Crusher than it is on Heartseeker. So I'm a little disappointed that only Heartseeker got nerfed and it wasn't... I just would have done it a little differently, but I think at least addressing the issue and then the design team understanding what the issue is, I think is completely fine, and we'll see how it goes. I could be wrong, and hopefully I am, because Crusher Heartseeker is broken. Rod of Hoody fixed an issue where the bonus scaling would not apply to passive abilities, so just a bug fix basically. Doom Orb increased magical power from 60 to 70 just to give it a power buff. Actually, I want to read this text really quick. Okay, I guess that is just a bug fix or whatever. Anyways, 10 more power on Doom Orb. You'll see this on a few items. Soul Reaver also gets buffed. 100 gold less and 10 more power. This puts Soul Reaver in a really, really good spot. It's now the same price of Book of Thoth. So if you don't want to stack, if you're a god, if you're like a burst mage, but you want to be good in the early game as well, so let's use something like a Vulcan, where you're kind of like a combo burst mage, but you're also pretty good early on. You don't need to scale to the late game. Maybe you buy something like Book of Thoth, or you buy Soul Reaver over Book of Thoth. That way you can start killing tanks. You now have that option. I kind of think they could have done one of these changes and been fine. I don't think it needed both, but both together certainly is very good. Enchanted Ring, just 15 more power on the tier 2. And then Shaman's Ring, 100 more gold, but 20 more power. So overall, a very good buff. 100 gold compared to 20 power. Obviously, it's worth it to have the 20 power, so definitely a buff. Telekines, decreased cost from 2,800 to 2,700. I didn't remember that. And then 10 plus 5% of your magical power will now be 10 plus 8%. I think this item is really underrated on magical ADCs. I think this change has the potential to make them really, really good. I think they were already fine, but I think this has huge potential. 3% of your magical power ends up being a lot, especially because you don't end up getting this item until like 5th or 6th on those type of characters. So you're looking at, you know, an extra, you know, potentially 20, 30 damage per auto attack, so it ends up being a ton. Maybe even more of that. God balance, obviously, Achilles has been insanely, insanely busted. Normally, I try not to say that the new characters are broken, or I just genuinely don't think they are broken. Achilles was freaking busted, like, no doubt about it. 40 damage less on his shield bash, 300 base is still a ton. The scaling is still 90%, so that's still a ton. And then it moved it to a 1 second stun instead of 1.5. Good change. I think you could have maybe lowered the scaling on it as well. 90% scaling is ridiculous for a warrior. Combat dodge increased cooldown from 10 to 12 seconds. Again, another good change, lowers mobility a little bit. And then Alquang, remove the brief window where Alquang is untargetable during this ability's cast time. So this is like when you're moving to stab somebody, to like latch onto them, to execute them, you gained immunity frames. This is actually a nerf. You no longer have those immunity frames. This was really only noticed incidentally or noticed at a high level of play where the Alquang player would use it purposely to immune damage. Yeah, Alquang kind of rip off of that one. So Beautiful, increased base damage from 70 to 290 to 80 to 320. This is actually a really big buff. 320 is a ton of damage on an ability, especially one that has a low cooldown like So Beautiful. His laning phase gets a little better from this. 10 more damage, not the hugest deal. Apollo's level 1 through 4 was already good, but now in team fights he'll probably be a lot stronger. I still don't know how good Apollo is. His ultimate really isn't that great, but his 1 through 3 are definitely really good abilities, so definitely an interesting change to see for Apollo. Kronos increased basic attack power from 35 to 40. His passive will also give him 50 more power at 50 minutes, which is insane. This might make Kronos really, really good, but again, I don't really know. I don't play a lot of these gods. Here's a god that I do play, Fafnir. Curse Strength, this is his 1. Increased the stun from 1 second, which was nerfed. It went from 1.5 to 1 at the start of Season 5. It will now scale up to 1.4. So it's very close to its max effect last season. However, they also did pair this with another nerf, which is decreasing the self-healing and the sustain from the Fafnir. Overall, this is definitely a buff. I don't think the heal is that big of a deal. And the stun just makes Fafnir good. This god is still really good. His ult is still super, super strong. His 2 is freaking broken for sieging, killing towers, all that good stuff. Maybe this makes him feel a lot better. Though I will say, a weakness of Fafnir has always been his lane phase. It has not been that good. He does not have that great early game clear that other Guardians do. And that is something that's being very utilized well, or being well utilized. I don't know what you want me to say. In duo lane, and because he doesn't really excel at that part of the game, you might still see Fafnir not really played that much, but I think he's fine. In terms of viability, I'm sure he's completely fine. I don't know if he's broken, I don't know if he's competitively viable, any of that stuff. But he's definitely good, or much better, after this buff. Peabo, that's another god that has been pub stomping. Decrease magical power scaling by 10% on Water Spout, and then increase the cooldown of his 2. This was like his main defensive move, I guess, unless you use your ult offensively. So, yeah, just a little bit less damage, a little bit longer cooldown, good adjustments to Peabo. And then Kumba decreased the cooldown on his 1, this is his 1, by 2 seconds, kind of meh, and then increased the base damage of Groggy Strike by 20. I still think Kumba's is kind of a weak character. This is a really, really good level 1 ability now, by the way. 90 damage on a wave and a 2-second root at level 1 is really, really good. It actually might make Kumba viable. But overall, he still is weak in team fights and just weak in general. I don't think he's that great of a character, just purely off of kit. But these buffs definitely do help him a lot. I'm sure he would stomp ranked because he does a lot. He does a lot of damage, like straight up. His 1 and his 2 does a ton of damage, his ult does a ton of damage, and now the cooldowns are lower and everything, so probably pretty good in ranked. Nemesis, another character that has been pub stomping super hard. This character is just stupid. She would just one-shot people with Heartseeker and Crusher, so decrease Nemesis self-buff duration from 8 to 5, and increase the cooldown to 90 seconds at all ranked. I don't think this is enough. I think Nem is still very, very strong. I think just the amount of damage that she's able to do until Heartseeker and Crusher are nerfed further, mainly Crusher, I think this is a bit too much, but as they say here, Blink, Heartseeker, and the nerf to Nem all in one might tone her down a ton, but this character is always very good whenever assassins are very strong, so really hard to tell. Newwall, just a bunch of quality of life changes, decrease mana cost of the fog, decrease the time that Newwall is revealed in the fog from 3 to 1, so basically if you cast an ability, you'll be re-stealthed in 1 second rather than 3 seconds. Just a good change. This applies to teammates as well. Increase movement speed of the soldiers. I mean, it's kind of just whatever. Shiny Metal, decrease mana by 10. Increase the scaling by 10%. That's actually another big deal. A lot more damage on this ability. It actually hits pretty hard, especially in combo with the 2-3 combo. And then Fire Shards can pass through player-made deployables while lifting off. This means if you ult in an Odin cage, you will be able to land on the other side of the Odin cage. So that's actually a huge change. This might make Newwall good. Not really sure. I don't know how good Newwall has been this season. Not a mage player, couldn't really tell you, but obviously some pretty big changes to Newwall. Ra, increased movement speed from 355 to 360, and then increased magical power scaling by 10% on his 1. Similarly to other mages, there's a lot of changes from Season 5 that kind of hurt Ra a lot. So I guess they're just buffing him up a little bit because he got screwed by a lot of the changes. Stuff like Cursed is very good against him. Assassin's doing a lot more damage is very good against him. He's not the safest god, so just rewarding you with more damage with him. And then Thoth, decrease magical pen from 20 to 15 on his passive, good change, and then Glyph of Pain, decrease magical power, scaling both on the ability and basic attack trigger from 10 to 5%. So if you use your entire kit through this, it would be 3 procs of the 1 proc of the 2, and 1 proc of the alt. So it would be 5 total, like 5 procs less. So that's basically a 25% scaling decrease across the entire kit if you use everything through the glyph, and his, you know, poke and everything is weaker. Definitely a good change to Thoth. He's probably still a very strong mage just because of how he interacts with stacking items and Mage's Blessing and stuff like that. But definitely good to tone him down. I think this patch overall was really, really good. They addressed pretty much all of the main concerns or the main things that were being abused in the current meta. And yeah, I think this is actually a huge change. SPL starts March 20th, for those of you who didn't know. And I think these changes are really, really going to shake it up and create a much better meta than we had before, where things like Crusher Heartseeker were just being completely insane. So hopefully this adjusts that a little bit more. But anyways, have a good one, guys. I appreciate you for watching. I'm going to try to upload some ranked games, all that good stuff. I still have a god build I'm working on. I'm looking to get that up on Monday, I think. So I'll do my best. I've just been editing it and stuff. Anyways, peace out. Have a good one. See ya.